What's going on YouTube? Now, one of the fastest growing and most competitive segments in the entire auto industry today is subcompact crossovers. Now, Toyota first entered this segment with the CHR in 2018. Then in 2019, they made pretty extensive changes. And now for 2020, they're doing another round of updates. Now, of course, we do want to pause for a second to specially thank our friends at Frankfort Toyota for giving us access to this 2020 CHR. And if you're in the market for any new Toyota, make sure you stop by their dealership or visit them via their website, which we provided a link to in the video description. So with that all said, let's see if this CHR can beat the tidal wave of new offerings. Now, to start out our 2020 changes, I might as well go with the most obvious update, and that's this brand new color. This is called Hot Lava, and as you can see, it's kind of a cool orange color and definitely very, very bold looking. Now, the grille has also been revised for 2020. It's not the type of update that you'll notice right off the bat, but if you had them side by side, you would be able to tell that this lower fascia here, this has been expanded a little bit to be a little bit larger. And then off to the side here, this is brand new, just a new element here to kind of punctuate the front design. But by far the most important 2020 update in my eyes has got to be the brand new LED headlights. Previously, LED headlights were not available on any CHR, and they're actually now included standard even on the base LE trim. Now on LE and XLE, they are reflective LED headlights with this kind of crystal design. If you go for the limited, they are projector LED headlights with adaptive abilities, and the limited will also throw in LED fog lights. Next up here we have the wheels, and some of them have been revised for 2020. So on the LE you have steel wheels with hubcaps, but new for 2020 you have an optional alloy wheel. When you go up to the XLE, like this model here, you have an 18-inch contrast alloy. I believe this is the same as last year. And then the Limited has an 18-inch alloy, but it has a different design than last year. And then moving up to our mirrors, they continue to have an uncommon amount of features for a vehicle in this class. So standard, you do have heating, but if you go for the XLE and up, that's where you'll have power folding, you'll have blind spot monitoring, as well as a projection puddle lamp. Now here at the side design of the CHR, this is an area that it's obviously very unique, especially for this segment of vehicle, because you do have this very cool two-tone roof design. Now there have actually been a few changes in this area for 2020 because the white roof option is now discontinued, and in its place you have a silver roof option as well as this black one that this particular model has. And this is a $500 option on the XLE and Limited trims. And then walking around to the rear design, the uniqueness definitely doesn't end here, because this is honestly one of the coolest parts about this CHR. And looking at the actual feature set of it, here up top you have a giant spoiler, which is a really unique look, in addition to an integrated lip spoiler right here. And then the tail lights are partially LED. The brake light is LED, the rest is halogen. And then down below we do have some black molding, but no exhaust pipes. Now, in terms of safety, this CHR really blows it out of the park, especially for an inexpensive vehicle like this, since Toyota Safety Sense is standard equipment across all of the lineup. That means they all have pre-collision braking with pedestrian detection, lane departure alert with steering assist, adaptive cruise control, and auto high beam headlights, which is really quite impressive feature, especially for this class of vehicle, since most of the rivals do make you pay extra for those features. But anyway, that sums up the funky and cool exterior styling of this CHR. So now let's go ahead and hop inside and see how interesting that interior is. So on the Toyota CHR, you will find the Smart Entry System standard on the XLE trim and up. And as you can see, it does have the typical Toyota fob with the CHR branding on it. Now, of course, like all Toyota models with Smart Entry, there is a sensor behind the handle, so all you have to do is grab it. And when you do, your mirrors will electrically fold outward. Alright, so taking a first look inside of the cabin. The CHR has always been about a really fashionable design, and that fashionable interior design does mostly carry over for 2020. Now, talking about your interior material and color options, each trim basically gets its own attitude. So for your LE, that's going to come with black fabric seating. But when you go for this XLE, it comes with black fabric, but with the special blue accents that run all throughout the cabin. Then if you go for the limited trim, that's where you'll get black leather, but it does have some special brown accents to kind of make it feel like a little bit of a richer place. Now turning over here to your door trim, it does continue to be very cool looking. You do have a leatherette that runs across the armrest here. You have this kind of diamond texture, which you'll see repeated all throughout the cabin. And then the upper part here is soft touch. As far as your windows, all 4 of them are one-touch auto up and down. And then coming down here to your seat, the 2 lower trims, they do have the same 6-way manual adjusting seat. However, new for 2020, you have an 8-way power adjusting seat if you choose that top-end limited trim. Now, as far as the seats themselves, I have to give a big compliment to Toyota on this. These are very, very nice looking seats, especially for a more basic cloth seat. You have a blue kind of quilted design, and they're very comfortable to set in. Now, in terms of the various trim levels, the XLE is definitely the most expressive in terms of design. So across your upper dash here, you'll always have a leatherette material, but only on the XLE is it finished in this cool blue color. You'll also notice we have a blue trim that runs all through here, and it does seamlessly connect to the doors, which is a really cool, nice touch. Moving down below that, we have more soft touch materials, and you really don't get to anything hard until you go all the way down here to the bottom, which is expected for a subcompact crossover. Now to start up the XLE and Limited, just press the button to go. Now taking a look at our gauges here, it does have a very clean and simple, mostly analog setup, but you do have a 4.2-inch multifunction display in the middle, and that does contain all the typical stuff that Toyotas usually have, including your safety systems. And then coming back here to the steering wheel, this is not very typical to Toyota. You do have a unique design here. It is leather wrapped also on the XLE and up. And of course the adjustment is fully manual, but heating is not available even on the limited trim. Alright, so let's go ahead and talk about storage because it is important for crossovers of any size. And it is decent here in the CHR. So underneath your center console here, you have plenty of space. You do have a really nice felt lining at the bottom as well, and a 12-volt outlet inside. Now your 2 cup holders are actually split up, so you have one right here. This one is adjustable, so it goes down very deep for a bottle. You also have another one right up here. And then up in the very front here, you have a small storage shelf, which will be good for sticking your phone, as well as a USB port. Now as far as your shifter, of course this is just a traditional shifter. You pull back for drive, bump to the left for manual shifting. However, there are not any paddle shifters on the steering wheel. And then when you go into reverse across all the trim levels, you will find this standard backup camera. It does have the guidance lines, but it does not have active trajectory. And then when you put the vehicle into park, your electronic parking brake will automatically engage, and you do also have the brake hold function right there. Alright, so we'll move on up the dashboard here to the climate controls. Now this is one of the features that really stands out for the CHR because you have dual zone automatic climate control standard even on that base LE trim. So of course you just adjust it right here. Everything's very simple to use with some nice physical knobs and buttons right through here. You would also find heated front seats if you went for the limited trim. Now next up the dash here brings us to our audio system. Now standard across all 3 trim levels is a 6-speaker sound system, so let's go ahead and take a sample of that. I'm actually quite pleased with the quality of this sound system. Definitely has a good punch, especially for, you know, a more basic 6-speaker sound system. Alright, so now we're up here at the Toyota Entune system. As if you remember, last year we did get Entune 3.0, and that does carry over here for 2020. But there is one important change this year, and that's that Android Auto ability has been added to the previous Apple CarPlay ability. Beyond that, as far as other important features, you would have navigation if you went for the limited trim only. Of course, since this is the XLE, we do not have that. But otherwise, you're looking at the same Toyota Entune system as in all other models. So if you want to learn more about that system, check the link in the description to see our dedicated tech help video. Now moving on up here, most of the models come with a manual dimming mirror, but you could get an auto dimming one on the limited trim. And then one kind of interesting choice that does remain for 2020 is the inability to get a moonroof. It's not available even on the limited trim. But at least Toyota did make the headliner kind of interesting with little diamonds that run through it. But anyways, guys, that is going to conclude all the stuff to look at in the front part of the cabin of this CHR. So now I'll go ahead and hand it off to my brother Mason, who will check out all the stuff in the back.
Now hopping back to the rear seat of this CHR, CHR actually stands for Coupe High Rider, and you can kind of tell that back here in the rear seat, since this is pretty much unlike anything in the competition, because this door trim, you know, it kind of swoops up and it almost kind of blocks your visibility, almost like you're in a coupe. Now, whether you think that's a good thing or a bad thing, I think it makes it feel a little bit claustrophobic back here, but honestly, in terms of space, you know, I guess I will go ahead and talk about this. You have 32 inches of rear legroom and 38 inches of rear headroom, which does make it a little bit less spacious than its main rivals like the Kia Seltos and Honda HR-V, but really it's not too bad. Behind Drew's seating position, I have at least 4 inches of rear legroom, and my feet can easily slide up under the seat, so as long as you're moderately sized, I don't think you're going to have very many issues back here. And as far as the features are concerned, nothing in this class really gives you a lot of features, and you aren't going to find anything back here at all. You have no vents, and you also do not have a center armrest. Now walking up to the tailgate, nothing in this class really gives you a power one, so all you have to do to open is just push the button and lift up. And once inside, you are going to find 19 cubic feet of space behind the second row seats, and then if you fold them, it gives you 36 cubic feet of space. Now that is worth noting, that's a little bit less than the majority of the competition like the Kia Seltos as well as Honda HR-V, since this vehicle is primarily for style. It puts style over functionality, and you are going to see that back here. However, Toyota does finish it nicely, especially for a vehicle in this class, because they do give you a cargo cover as standard equipment across all of the models, and up underneath of the floor we do have a spare tire. As expected, your passenger seat is manually adjusting, and down below that, you do have a good-sized glove box. This is actually quite large for what I would expect for this class of vehicle, and it is also dampened. And up top, we do have a sun visor with a light and mirror, and it does also detach and have an extension in the end. But anyway, guys, that sums up all the rear areas of the CHR, so now let's go ahead and see how it performs on the road compared to its competition.
Alright, so first taking off here in the 2020 Toyota CHR. You have the same powertrain as the previous two model years. You have basically the same powertrain as in the Corolla, so you're making 144 horsepower and 139 pound-feet of torque. You know, those are class competitive numbers. That's pretty much typical for what the main competition, such as the Honda HR-V, make. Now, as you guys know, we did just recently drive the Kia Seltos, and that's kind of a rare breed because it does have an optional, more powerful turbo engine. That's not the case here in the CHR or in the vast majority of the competition. Now, as you can probably hear, this of course has a continuously variable transmission. There is 7 simulated gear changes. It doesn't really do the simulation all that often. It kind of waits until you're up to speed before it starts doing it, so that's something to take note. It's not going to convince you that this is a traditional automatic, but it is still nice to see there is some type of simulation effect, you know, to help cut down on drone. Now, one of the other important things to note about this CHR is that it is front-wheel drive only. Most things in the class, they do have optional all-wheel drive, you know, as you kind of expect for a crossover. So just keep that in mind. This is actually front-wheel drive only, and they have not changed that for 2020.
And, you know, I do want to, you know, talk about, we're going around 45 miles an hour. I just kind of want to talk about, you know, the ride quality and comfort. Here in the front, I do think I'm very comfortable. You know, so far on this test drive, I found this cabin to be quiet for, you know, this class of vehicle, and also I'm very comfortable. You know, there's plenty of space up here in the front, so I really don't think you're going to have any issues in terms of the comfort.
These seats are excellent,
yeah.
I will add. Very soft, especially, you know, some affordable vehicles, they cut corners and stuff like that. But these are really soft, have big bolsters. I'm actually really a big fan of these.
And talking about the quietness, I will go ahead and get out the sound level meter here.
Okay. We're going to cruise at 55 miles an hour for this.
Okay. 53.5 is actually what it came out to. Really good. I mean, now there are other factors that come into play here. This road is actually pretty smooth, and it's not super windy today, but that's really quite impressive. That's honestly one of the lowest numbers that we've ever gotten across any of this class. So it does go to show you that even though this is a cheap car, it doesn't necessarily cut out in like the deadening or anything like that. It's still a very quiet cabin.
Now, I do want to discuss the handling. So kind of going around some corners there. I will say, just like most recent Toyotas, it actually has pretty impressive handling chops. This new TNGA platform, it's really just excellent as far as how it makes these vehicles handle. They're really buttoned down, you know, and just a lot in this class are sloppy. And this, you know, really feels nice and buttoned down. The steering is a little bit on the lighter end of things. Like the RAV4, for instance, felt a lot tighter and sportier feeling. This is a lot more geared on the light side of things, but still very accurate, still fast responding, and like I said, doesn't hurt the really agile feel of the vehicle.
And the last thing that we do need to talk about is, of course, the fuel economy. That's a very important part of anything in this class. And the CHR does come in well. So it's rated at 27 city, 31 highway, 29 combined, which is pretty much the same as the competition, same as the Kia Seltos, same as pretty much everything in the class, which is really exceptional fuel economy.
But all in all, I think the driving experience here in the CHR is quite pleasant. You know, it is a vehicle that feels like comfort is kind of a class above. As we discussed, it's actually quite quiet in here. And, you know, it really is comfortable, especially up here in the front where you have plenty of space. So even though the price would suggest that this might be a penalty box to drive, I am happy to say that it is not.
Now let's go ahead and discuss the pricing for the CHR. So if you want to go for the very base LE trim, that's going to come in at $21,295. If you want to go for the XLE, which is what we have here, that's $23,330. And then finally you have the limited trim, which is the highest end model. That's $26,350. And that is worth noting that's about a $300 increase over last year. Now we do have the XLE with a few options on it. So we have the two-tone roof for $500, blackout badges for $89, and then all-weather floor mats for $269, as well as a rear bumper protector for $80. And then finally, when you add the destination charge of $1,120, you come in to a as tested price of $25,387 for this particular model, which I have to say, that's a lot of value. And this is actually, a little SUV, and SUVs can be really expensive now. So this is a really great offering if you don't need a ton of space in the rear or in the cargo area. Well guys, we hope you enjoyed watching this in-depth look at the 2020 Toyota CHR XLE. If you've made it this far, hopefully that means you enjoyed the video, so be sure to help us out by hitting that subscribe button down below, and we'll catch you next time as we sample more of the latest automotive delicacies.